As the debate entered its final moments, the atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. The two figures on stage had been battling all night, words were weapons, and the crowd was on the edge of their seats. Donald Trump, already known for his unpredictable, scathing attacks, leaned forward, his voice dripping with contempt. He turned to Hillary Clinton with that trademark smirk, the kind that always preceded a brutal jab. "You're the one who said America was already great," he sneered, his voice booming through the microphone. "Tell me, Hillary, when was America ever great for people like us? The working class? The forgotten people?" The audience gasped, some nodding in agreement, others recoiling at the audacity of the question. Trump's words were a calculated attack, designed to hit where it hurt, to weaken the foundations of Clinton's campaign. It was a moment that could break anyone. But Hillary Clinton? She didn't flinch. Her expression remained calm, her posture steady, but there was a fire in her eyes. As the room hung in suspense, waiting for her to respond, Clinton took a deep breath, and then, she smiled. "Let me tell you something, Donald," she began, her voice even but laced with sharp conviction. "America has always been great. It's great because it gives people like me, people who fought for change, for justice, the chance to stand here and fight for every person, every family, every community that's been ignored. That's the America I'm fighting for." The crowd went silent. The moment stretched, the weight of her words settling over the room. And then it hit, the thunderous applause. Clinton's response had struck like a lightning bolt. In an instant, she reframed the debate, not just as a contest of policy, but as a battle for the very soul of the nation. Trump's face twisted with disbelief. His smugness evaporated. The heat of the moment was too much for him to handle. And for the first time that night, it wasn't Hillary who looked rattled. What happened next? It left the entire world in disbelief. The stakes couldn't have been higher. It was September 26, 2016, the first presidential debate between two of the most polarizing figures America had ever seen. The nation's future hung in the balance. The eyes of the world were fixed on the stage, the air thick with the weight of history. For millions, this wasn't just another debate, it was the moment that would define the course of the country for generations. On one side stood Hillary Clinton, the seasoned politician. She had been in the trenches for decades, First Lady, Senator, Secretary of State, her resume was built on service, diplomacy, and a relentless pursuit of progress. Her campaign symbolized experience, stability, and the promise of a better future through inclusivity and unity. She was, for all intents and purposes, the embodiment of the political establishment, but with a twist, she wasn't just fighting for policy, she was fighting for the dignity of every person in the country. A woman running for president. A mother, a wife, and a champion for those who had been left behind in the harsh reality of America's divisions. And then there was Donald Trump, a businessman turned reality TV star who had never held public office but was now one step away from the highest office in the land. His campaign, built on the backs of controversy, fear-mongering, and populist promises, resonated with millions of Americans who felt forgotten by the political elite. He didn't come from the world of politics, he came from the world of power, money, and spectacle. He was a symbol of a new era, one that rejected the traditional order and embraced chaos as a tool of change. Trump wasn't interested in diplomacy. He wasn't interested in policies that would unify the country. No, his brand was division. His rhetoric was harsh. His attacks, personal. In that moment, as the two candidates stood before the nation, the fundamental values that had guided America since its founding were being questioned. Clinton spoke of hope, progress, and the collective good. She argued that America was strongest when it embraced diversity, when it reached across political divides and worked for the common good. Trump, however, represented something different. Something darker. He was a force of anger, a man who promised to make America great again by tapping into the raw, unfiltered rage that many Americans felt toward the political system. He didn't want to unite, he wanted to expose weakness and capitalize on it. His promise was to rip the system apart, to tear down institutions and norms, and to rebuild America on his terms. For Clinton, this debate was about the future of the country, the future of immigrants, of women, of marginalized communities. She was standing up for the idea that America could be better. She believed in the power of diversity, of inclusion, of progress. But for Trump, the stakes were different. He wasn't looking to build a better country, he was looking to reclaim a past that may have never existed in the first place. His America was one where only the strongest survived, where walls were built not just around borders, but around ideas, identities, and people. What happened next would not only shape the outcome of the election, it would determine the direction America would take in the years to come. The debate wasn't just about policy, it was about identity, about values, about the very soul of the nation. Would the future of America be defined by unity or division? By progress or stagnation? The room was on edge. The nation was on edge. This was no ordinary election. This was the fight for the heart of America. And the world was watching. Donald Trump wasn't just running for president, he was running a campaign built on insults, division, and anger. His every move, his every word, seemed designed to provoke, to hurt. A billionaire businessman with no political experience, Trump had spent decades building a brand on the foundations of arrogance and spectacle. His empire wasn't built on traditional methods, it was built on headlines, on controversy, on being the center of attention. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a media mogul, a larger-than-life figure whose very name became synonymous with excess, wealth, and, most of all, power. Born into privilege, Trump had lived a life sheltered from the realities most Americans faced. He wasn't just wealthy, he was untouchable. His father's fortune gave him the tools to build an empire, but it was Trump's insatiable ego and penchant for drama that elevated him beyond the boardrooms and into the public eye. He became a fixture of tabloids and reality TV, his show The Apprentice turning him into a household name. For years, his life was a spectacle, a never-ending performance of wealth, bravado, and boldness. It was a performance that didn't require nuance, diplomacy, or sensitivity, qualities that Clinton, a lifelong public servant, had come to master over decades in the political arena. Trump didn't deal in diplomacy. He didn't follow the rules of political decorum. His approach was raw, instinctual, and utterly unpredictable. He thrived on chaos. Where Clinton spent her life honing the art of negotiation, building coalitions, and carefully crafting messages that would resonate with diverse groups of Americans, Trump chose to tear down those very groups. His language was inflammatory. His rhetoric, divisive. He didn't care about unifying the country, he cared about amplifying the rage of the disaffected. And people ate it up. His populist appeal was undeniable. There was a segment of the American public that felt ignored, disenfranchised, and utterly fed up with a political system that seemed to serve only the elite. Trump spoke to them in a way that no other candidate could. He didn't speak in polished, measured tones like Clinton, he spoke in bold, brash declarations that mirrored their anger and frustration. He gave them a voice. A voice that was loud, unapologetic, and relentless. For Trump, the rules didn't apply. His campaign wasn't about winning over voters with reasoned arguments or carefully crafted policy proposals. It was about firing up his base with sharp, cutting rhetoric. His speeches were filled with insults, jabs, and calls for a return to a time when America's power was unquestioned. He was the anti-establishment candidate, the man who would shake up the system, no matter the cost. Trump's disdain for political norms was on full display long before the 2016 campaign. He made a name for himself by publicly mocking those who dared challenge him, turning every disagreement into a spectacle. He didn't just call his opponents weak, he called them losers. He didn't just attack policies, he attacked people. Whether it was ridiculing political opponents, mocking disabled reporters, or launching baseless attacks on immigrants and minorities, Trump's every move was calculated to stir up controversy, to create a divide between those who supported him and everyone else. This wasn't just strategy, it was his identity. Trump didn't just want to be president, he wanted to be the dominant figure in the room. He wanted to crush his enemies, to embarrass them, to show them who was truly in charge. He didn't see politics as a way to serve the people, he saw it as a battleground where he could conquer anyone who dared stand in his way. But that approach had consequences. It alienated millions of Americans who saw Trump not as a leader but as a symbol of everything that was wrong with the political system. For them, his lack of empathy, his crude language, and his unrelenting attacks were a reflection of the worst parts of American politics. His refusal to adhere to any sense of decency or civility made him a dangerous figure, one who had the potential to tear the country apart with his divisive rhetoric. It wasn't just his words, it was the way he wielded them. Every insult, every barb, was calculated to make his opponents feel small, insignificant, weak. When Clinton called him out for his misogynistic remarks, he doubled down, attacking her, calling her crooked and questioning her integrity. He didn't care about winning over the middle ground. He only cared about the angry, disillusioned voters who felt left behind by the system. Trump's style was one of confrontation. Where Clinton aimed to win hearts and minds with a message of hope, progress, and unity, Trump relied on fear. He didn't offer solutions, he offered chaos. He didn't promise healing, he promised victory at any cost. This debate wasn't just about policies, it was about values. Clinton's values of unity, inclusion, and progress stood in stark contrast to Trump's values of division, anger, and confrontation. In that moment, it wasn't just the future of America on the line, it was the very essence of what America stood for. And Trump, with his disdain for political norms and his unrelenting hunger for power, was determined to burn it all down. What would happen next? The clash was inevitable. And the world would soon see which vision for America would prevail. Hillary Clinton had spent decades building her reputation, one setback, one challenge at a time. From a young lawyer standing up for children's rights to becoming one of the most powerful women in the world, she had never been afraid of a fight. Every obstacle she faced, every door that closed in her face, only fueled her determination to keep going. Clinton was no stranger to adversity. She understood the weight of expectations, the sting of criticism, and the grueling battle for respect in a world that often underestimated her. But each time, she rose. Each time, she fought harder. Born in Chicago, Hillary Rodham was the product of a middle-class family that placed a strong emphasis on education, service, and responsibility. From an early age, she demonstrated a sharp intellect and an unwavering sense of justice. She wasn't interested in the status quo, she was interested in making a difference. That drive led her to Yale Law School, where she excelled and began her work on issues of child advocacy and public policy. Even as a young lawyer, she wasn't content to follow the traditional career path, she was determined to use her talents to change the world. Her early career was shaped by a deep commitment to social justice. In the 1970s, she took on cases that fought for children's rights, advocating for children with disabilities and working to ensure that young people received the services and protection they deserved. It was clear even then that she had a gift for understanding the complexities of law and society, and a passion for protecting the most vulnerable. But it wasn't just her legal prowess that set her apart, it was her ability to connect with people. Whether she was in a courtroom or a community center, Clinton listened. She understood that true leadership wasn't just about having the right answers, it was about listening to the people you served. Her rise through the political world wasn't without its challenges. As First Lady of Arkansas, and later as the First Lady of the United States, Clinton was subjected to a level of scrutiny no woman before her had faced. She was relentlessly criticized for being outspoken, for challenging traditional gender roles, and for refusing to conform to the typical expectations of a political spouse. But Clinton didn't back down. Instead, she used her platform to advocate for children's health care, for women's rights, and for the voiceless. It was during these years that she truly began to understand the deep divides within the country, and the power of leadership that could bridge those divides. As a senator from New York, she fought tirelessly for her state and her constituents. She learned how to navigate the rough waters of Washington, how to negotiate, compromise, and build coalitions. Clinton was a master of diplomacy, understanding that the true art of politics wasn't in grandstanding, but in getting things done. She understood the importance of unity, of bringing people together from different backgrounds and ideologies to solve problems. It wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. She didn't seek the spotlight, but when she spoke, people listened. Her time as Secretary of State was perhaps the greatest test of her leadership. As the first woman to hold the position, she was thrust into the global spotlight, facing crises and conflicts that spanned the globe. From the Arab Spring to the Benghazi attack, Clinton was forced to confront some of the most difficult diplomatic challenges in modern history. Her tenure was marked by moments of profound leadership, such as brokering a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and overseeing the killing of Osama bin Laden, but also by the harsh realities of global politics. There were no easy answers, no quick fixes. And yet, she remained steadfast. Clinton wasn't just representing the United States, she was representing the values of diplomacy, integrity, and cooperation in a world that often saw those values as weaknesses. While she faced setbacks, including the infamous 2008 Democratic primary battle against Barack Obama, Clinton never gave up. She didn't allow her failures to define her. Instead, she used them to learn, to adapt, and to grow. Each loss made her more determined to fight harder, to push further, to become the kind of leader who could bring real change to the country. By the time 2016 rolled around, Clinton was ready. She wasn't just a seasoned politician, she was a woman who had lived through and weathered the storms of a lifetime of service. The 2016 election was more than just a political race. It was a culmination of everything Clinton had fought for, the culmination of a career that had been built on hard work, resilience, and a deep love for her country. It was also intensely personal. She had faced the slings and arrows of a media and political system that was far more critical of her than any man who had ever run for office. She had been relentlessly scrutinized, her every move dissected. And yet, despite all of it, she still pressed forward. She still believed in the idea that America could be better. But what was at stake in this election wasn't just her legacy, it was the future of the nation. Hillary Clinton wasn't running to defend her own reputation, she was running to defend the values that had defined her career. The values of hard work, compassion, and progress. In stark contrast to Trump's chaotic, divisive campaign, Clinton's was one of hope, unity, and pragmatic solutions. Where Trump saw division as a strategy, Clinton saw it as a threat to the very soul of the country. As the debate approached, it wasn't just a contest of policies or personalities. It was a battle for the future of America, for its soul. And Clinton, despite the battles she had faced and the weight of the years on her shoulders, knew that this was her moment. Her strength came not from the praise she had received, but from the countless moments of struggle and adversity that had forged her into the leader she had become. She was ready to face down Trump, not just as a candidate, but as a champion of the values that would determine the future of the country. And she knew that this was a fight she couldn't afford to lose. The debate had already taken a turn toward the chaotic. What had begun as a traditional exchange of ideas quickly devolved into something far more personal. The air in the room was charged with hostility, and as the tension rose, it became clear that this wasn't just about policies anymore, it was about the battle for America's soul. And Trump? He wasn't holding back. Clinton's been in politics for decades, Trump sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. What has she accomplished? Nothing. She's part of the problem. She's what's wrong with this country. She's all talk, no action. His words came fast, relentless, designed to chip away at Clinton's credibility, to paint her as an establishment figure who'd failed to deliver on any of her promises. The only thing she's been good at is lying, and everybody knows it. Clinton's face didn't change. She remained poised, her eyes locked on Trump, her jaw clenched but unbroken. She had heard it all before, the attacks, the insults, the whispers. She'd been a target of criticism for her entire career, but none of it had ever defined her. She had learned to rise above. In this moment, though, something was different. Trump wasn't just attacking her political record, he was attacking her character. He was questioning her very integrity, and that stung. The audience shifted uncomfortably. There was a palpable sense of unease in the room. Trump's words were venomous, and each one seemed to hit its mark. This woman, he continued, his voice rising, has been in politics so long, she doesn't know what it's like to be a regular American anymore. She's a liar, a fraud, a puppet of the elites. And the American people know it. Clinton inhaled sharply, her mind racing. This wasn't the kind of debate she had prepared for. The strategy had always been about appealing to reason, to values, to the shared experiences of the people. But Trump was taking it to a different level, a level that was personal, ugly, and dangerous. It was a level she couldn't ignore. But Clinton remained composed. She knew how to keep her cool under pressure. She had faced far worse than this, attacks from her own party, the relentless barrage from the right, the daily grind of public scrutiny. She had been in the trenches for years. Trump, on the other hand, was flailing. His insults were growing more erratic, his arguments less grounded in substance. But the crowd? They were eating it up. They loved the drama, the spectacle. They reveled in the chaos. And for a brief moment, Clinton felt it, the desire to fire back, to lash out, to put him in his place. But she resisted. She couldn't give in to the theatrics. Not here. Not now. Trump leaned forward, eyes wide, his voice like a whip. Hillary Clinton, he said, each syllable sharp and deliberate, you've been promising change for years, and what have you done? Nothing. You want to talk about helping the people? You're just another politician who says one thing and does another. And the people aren't fooled. Clinton's heart raced, but she kept her face neutral. She had spent her life fighting for the very people Trump was claiming to represent. The working-class families, the immigrants, the women, the ones he mocked, the ones he demeaned. This was no longer just a debate about policy. This was about the values they represented. This was about the future of a country that had always prided itself on its inclusivity, its belief in equality, in opportunity. Trump wanted to tear all of that down. As the attacks continued, Clinton's mind raced, not with anger, but with clarity. She knew what she had to do. She wasn't going to engage in the mudslinging. She was going to expose Trump for exactly what he was, a man who thrived on division, who had nothing to offer but empty promises. She wasn't going to lower herself to his level. But the audience was on edge. Their eyes flicked between the two, waiting for the next blow to land. It wasn't just a debate now, it was a spectacle. The stakes had been raised beyond anything they had anticipated. Trump was relentless. He was playing to his base, appealing to their anger and frustration, while Clinton stood as the embodiment of everything they despised, a politician, a woman, someone who dared to challenge the very structures of power they had long accepted. Clinton was no stranger to the pressure of high-stakes moments, but this one was different. This wasn't just another speech, another rally, it was the entire nation watching. The world was watching. Every word she said, every response, was being scrutinized, analyzed, and dissected. Trump knew it, and he was using that knowledge to try to break her. As the debate raged on, Trump's insults grew harsher, more personal. Clinton, however, remained calm, poised, and unwavering. But inside, her resolve was being tested like never before. She could feel the weight of the moment, the pressure mounting as the clock ticked down. This wasn't just about defeating Trump in a debate, it was about defending everything she had worked for, everything she believed in. And the audience? They were hanging on every word, waiting for the decisive moment, the turning point that would signal the end of this fight. What would happen next? Could Clinton maintain her composure? Or would Trump's attacks finally rattle her? The tension in the room was palpable. The crowd had been on the edge of their seats, watching as Trump relentlessly jabbed at Clinton, attacking her credibility, her integrity, and every fiber of her political being. But Clinton, though rattled, had remained composed. She had weathered his insults, his accusations, his theatrics, all while maintaining a calm, unwavering presence. The debate had escalated to a point where it was no longer about the policy details, it was about the soul of the nation, and Trump was doing everything in his power to break Clinton down. And then, at that precise moment, Clinton knew it was time. She had been patient. She had absorbed the chaos, the lies, the personal attacks. She had allowed Trump to make his play, confident in his ability to reveal himself for who he truly was, a man of bluster, of empty promises, and of hypocrisy. Now, she would respond. Now, she would expose him for what he truly was. The room grew quiet. Trump's words had just landed, a final, damning attack on Clinton's character. The applause from his supporters echoed through the hall, but it felt hollow, as though they were cheering for something far less substantive than the truth. Clinton's face remained calm, almost serene, as she glanced briefly at Trump. For the first time that night, he didn't look so confident. The smirk on his face had faded, replaced by a subtle shift, perhaps fear, perhaps uncertainty. Clinton took a breath, her gaze never leaving Trump. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady. It was quiet, but it carried the weight of everything she had fought for. "Donald, I've listened to you over the past hour. I've listened to your attacks, your insults, your wild claims. And I'll admit, it's been hard to take them seriously," Clinton began, her tone deliberately measured. "You say you're a businessman, that you've built an empire. But let's be clear about one thing, you didn't build that empire. You inherited it. You started with a loan from your father, a loan that you, by the way, tried to hide during your campaign. You've spent your life playing a game where the rules don't apply to you." She paused, letting her words sink in. Trump's lips twitched, but he said nothing. The audience was waiting. "Let's talk about the so-called, self-made man you want to portray yourself as," she continued, her eyes locking with his. "You've spent decades dodging taxes, using loopholes, and evading responsibility. You've taken credit for success that wasn't yours to begin with, and when things got tough, you ran. You ran from your debts, you ran from your failures, and you've never once taken responsibility for the harm you've caused. Whether it's your bankruptcies, your fake university, or the countless workers you've stiffed along the way, you've made it clear that when things go south, you leave everyone else behind." The crowd stirred, some nodding, others staring in stunned silence. But Clinton wasn't done. "You've talked a big game, Donald. But the truth is, you've never been about lifting people up. You've only ever been about lifting yourself," she said, her voice growing more pointed. "You have spent your entire life tearing people down, attacking anyone who stands in your way. But tonight, I'm not just here to defend myself, I'm here to defend the millions of Americans who believe in something better. Something greater than you." Trump's face reddened, but he was still silent. He wasn't used to being called out like this. Not with such precision, not with such clarity. He was used to silencing his opponents, not having his own weaknesses exposed in front of millions. But Hillary Clinton wasn't intimidated. She didn't flinch. She had fought too many battles to let him break her now. "You've claimed to be a voice for the people, but who are you really fighting for, Donald?" Clinton continued. "The wealthy, the powerful, the ones who've been running this country into the ground for decades? Your idea of making America great again is nothing more than a return to a time when only the privileged had a seat at the table. You want to bring back the days when racism, sexism, and hate were the status quo. You want to build walls, divide communities, and turn our backs on the very values that have made America strong." The room was growing tense. The audience was split, some looking to Trump for his reaction, others waiting for Clinton's next move. Trump finally shifted in his seat, his fingers clenching into fists. But Clinton's focus was unwavering. "And let's not forget," she said, her voice lowering with a quiet finality, "that the man who stands before you tonight, this savior of the people, has been everything but. He's a man who mocks the disabled. A man who stokes the flames of hatred and fear. A man who cannot even see the inherent worth of every person in this country, no matter their race, gender, or background. You've built a career on fear, Donald. On division. And tonight, you've tried to tear down my character with lies and half-truths. But it's not working. Clinton's gaze never wavered from Trump, and the room was still. It wasn't just her words that were hitting, there was something deeper, something that cut through the noise. It was truth. And in this moment, it was undeniable. This country doesn't need another businessman turned politician who's more interested in personal gain than public service. What we need, Donald, is someone who will fight for everyone. Not just the rich and powerful. We need someone who will fight for the immigrants, the working class, the people you've dismissed for so long. We need someone who believes in the ideals that have always made America great. She paused, her words hanging in the air. And that's what I'm here to do. The silence that followed was deafening. The audience was frozen, some unsure of how to react, others caught up in the power of Clinton's words. It was a moment of stark clarity, a mic drop of truth that left Trump visibly shaken. The arrogance in his face began to crumble. His confidence, which had been unshakable moments before, now seemed fragile. Some in the crowd erupted into applause. Others remained in stunned silence. But one thing was certain, the tide had shifted. Trump opened his mouth, but no words came out. Clinton had hit him where it hurt, and for the first time in the debate, it was clear who had the upper hand. The world was watching. The battle wasn't over, but it was no longer in doubt. By the next morning, the internet was ablaze. Hashtag Clinton wins was trending on Twitter, and memes flooded every corner of social media. The moment Hillary Clinton had delivered her devastating counterattack on Donald Trump had turned into the political equivalent of an earthquake, its shockwaves rippling out far beyond the confines of the debate hall. What had started as a typical political contest had quickly transformed into something far more significant, a cultural and political inflection point. The narrative had shifted in a single, pivotal moment, and there was no going back. News outlets scrambled to cover the fallout. Headlines read like a storm: Clinton exposes Trump's hypocrisy in epic debate moment, Trump's confidence crumbles after Clinton's mic drop, a turning point for America, Clinton's game-changing performance, each one acknowledging the seismic shift in the national conversation. The talking heads in every newsroom couldn't stop replaying the clip of Clinton's words, over and over again, as if they themselves couldn't quite believe what they had just witnessed. On Twitter, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Hashtag Clinton wins dominated the trending topics, with thousands of tweets praising Clinton for her calm, calculated response. Supporters of the Democratic nominee flooded the platform with their thoughts, resharing her words, celebrating the power of her message. One tweet read, "Hillary just showed us all why she's ready for the White House. This moment will be remembered." Another said, "Clinton didn't just win the debate, she won the hearts of millions who needed a reason to believe again." But it wasn't just Clinton supporters who were reacting. The backlash against Trump was swift and unforgiving. One of the first to weigh in was conservative columnist David Brooks, who tweeted, "Trump's inability to respond to Clinton's facts is a sad reflection of his lack of leadership. The country deserves better." Another prominent voice, GOP strategist Ana Navarro, tweeted, "I'm not a Democrat, but I think Hillary Clinton just took the debate, and the election, in one moment." Unbelievable. The memes were the real stars of the show, though. Within hours, the internet was flooded with variations of the iconic moment where Clinton took down Trump. Some were humorous, playing on Trump's flustered reaction, while others took a more serious tone, showcasing Clinton's composure. A meme showing Trump's face in a state of shock, with the text, "When you realize the fight for the White House isn't just a business deal," went viral, receiving millions of retweets in a matter of hours. Others simply captured Clinton's words, "We need someone who believes in the ideals that have always made America great." The message resonated with a wide range of people, including those disillusioned with the political system, those who had been on the fence, and those already firmly in Clinton's camp. The real-time reactions continued to roll in as the night wore on. Celebrities, many of whom had been outspoken about their disdain for Trump's campaign, took to social media to praise Clinton's performance. Actor and activist Mark Ruffalo tweeted, "That moment was a game-changer. Hillary Clinton just showed what real leadership looks like. This is the kind of president America needs." Comedian and writer, Chelsea Handler, shared a video clip of Clinton's mic drop moment, adding, "Hillary did what needed to be done. Trump's days are numbered." But it wasn't just the Hollywood elite who were taking notice. Political figures from across the spectrum acknowledged Clinton's overwhelming victory. Bernie Sanders, while still a rival to Clinton within the Democratic Party, tweeted, "Hillary just delivered a strong message to the American people. We need more of that kind of leadership." Meanwhile, former President George H.W. Bush, in a rare show of public support, offered a simple but powerful message: America needs a leader with dignity and respect. Hillary showed that tonight. Trump's camp, meanwhile, was scrambling. The press conferences the following day were full of finger-pointing and damage control. Spokesperson Kellyanne Conway attempted to spin the situation, calling Clinton's counterattack a calculated political maneuver, but the damage was done. Trump's own campaign staffers were visibly rattled. His supporters, once so confident in their candidate's ability to outlast any attack, began to express doubt. This was supposed to be Trump's time to shine. Instead, Hillary made him look like an amateur, one anonymous GOP strategist lamented. On Facebook, posts from voters across the country echoed similar sentiments. One shared, "I was a Trump supporter, but after last night, I'm not so sure. Hillary has the strength, the intelligence, and the character to be our leader." Another said, "Trump's inability to answer Clinton's points shows he's not ready for the White House. He's just playing a game." What made this moment even more significant was how it rippled across the political spectrum. It wasn't just an immediate reaction, it was a shifting tide. By the morning after the debate, conversations about Trump's chances of winning the election were changing. Journalists and pundits began asking whether the entire trajectory of the race had just been altered. Clinton's poise, intelligence, and moral clarity had made a sharp contrast to Trump's unpredictability, his insults, his bullying. The American people had just witnessed a turning point. The debate wasn't over, of course. There were still weeks to go before Election Day, but Clinton's performance had reshaped the entire political conversation. The ground beneath Trump's campaign was shifting. The cracks in his image were beginning to widen, and for the first time in the race, Clinton looked not just like the ideal candidate, but like the one who would win it all. As the days wore on, the ripple effects continued. Polls began to show a narrowing of the gap. Supporters of Clinton were energized, fueled by a sense of vindication, while Trump's campaign seemed to lose momentum. The coming days would reveal just how deep the fallout from the debate would be, but one thing was certain: that night, Hillary Clinton didn't just win the debate, she shifted the political tide in her favor. What would Trump do next? Could he recover from the damage? Would this moment define the election, or would it become just another footnote in the chaotic journey to the White House? The political world had been irrevocably changed. The debate was no longer just a contest of ideas, it had become a battle for America's future. And Clinton had taken a commanding lead. As the days passed, the echoes of the debate resonated across the country. The headlines had faded, the viral memes had slowed, but the impact of what had transpired that night remained palpable. It wasn't just that Hillary Clinton had won the debate, it was that she had refocused the entire conversation, lifting it from the personal attacks and chaos that had defined the race to a higher, more meaningful place. In the aftermath, Clinton knew that the battle wasn't just about beating Trump at his own game. It was about showing the American people what true leadership looked like, leadership rooted in values, in the pursuit of justice, in a deep belief that America could be better, that it could heal. Clinton understood that the stakes had always been about more than the presidency. It was about the future of the country, about the kind of America the next generation would inherit. Standing at that podium, Clinton reframed the debate in a way that few could have predicted. She didn't lower herself to Trump's level of insult and division. Instead, she rose above it all. She showed the world that real strength didn't lie in tearing others down, it lay in standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Her calm, powerful response wasn't just a moment of victory, it was a moment of moral clarity. Clinton wasn't just defending herself, she was defending the values that defined the heart of America. In her closing remarks, she chose not to continue the fight over who was right or wrong on policy. Instead, she returned to the principles that had guided her entire career, the belief that the strength of this nation lay in its people, in their diversity, in their resilience. She stood as a symbol of dignity in a moment that had been defined by disgrace. And in doing so, she not only won the debate but offered the American people a glimpse of the kind of leadership they deserved. "This isn't about winning or losing," Clinton said, her voice steady but unwavering. "This is about the future we want for our children, and the values we choose to uphold. It's about the America we want to create together, where every person, no matter their background, their race, their gender, their faith, can have a place at the table." Her words carried through the debate hall, resonating beyond the stage. For those watching at home, whether they were immigrants, young people, parents struggling to make ends meet, Clinton spoke to them. She was offering more than just a platform or a set of policies. She was offering a vision of what America could be if it returned to its ideals of justice, equality, and opportunity for all. Clinton didn't speak in grand, empty slogans. She spoke from a place of deep personal conviction, backed by decades of public service, of standing up for the powerless, of fighting for the marginalized. She had spent a lifetime navigating a system designed to exclude her, to undermine her, and yet, she had never wavered. Her resilience wasn't born out of the need to prove herself to others, it was born out of her commitment to the values she believed in. It was a direct contrast to Trump's approach, a man whose political career had been defined by a rejection of those values. Clinton's appeal wasn't to fear or division, but to unity and purpose. She wasn't promising to make America great again by tearing it apart. She was promising to build a better America, one rooted in empathy, in understanding, in the simple truth that we are stronger together. In that moment, Clinton wasn't just a candidate, she was a symbol of hope. Hope for a country that had been torn apart by political rancor, hope for people who had been told they didn't belong, hope for a new vision of America that didn't have to be built on division and hatred. It wasn't about any one person, it was about all of us, together. As the debate ended, the room stood still, and for the first time, the true stakes of the election had been made clear. This wasn't just about electing a president. It was about deciding what kind of country America would be. It was about choosing between a future defined by fear and chaos, or a future rooted in justice, integrity, and unity. Clinton's message was one of perseverance and dignity. She had faced down a relentless barrage of attacks, and rather than stooping to the level of her opponent, she had turned the narrative around. In the face of anger and hostility, she had chosen grace, and in doing so, she had made clear that the future of America didn't lie in the hands of the few, but in the hands of the many. For those who had watched, Clinton's performance was a turning point. It was a reminder of the power of honesty, of integrity, of staying true to one's values even when the world around you seemed to fall apart. She had shown that leadership wasn't about winning at all costs, it was about doing what was right, even when the odds were stacked against you. And in that moment, she had become more than just a politician, she had become a symbol of what America could be, and what it was capable of achieving when it chose to embrace its highest ideals. The debate has ended, but the fight for America's future is far from over. Hillary Clinton didn't just show us what true leadership looks like, she reminded us of the values that have always made this country great: integrity, honesty, and a commitment to justice. Through every insult, every attack, she stood firm, representing the very best of what this country can be. Trump's chaos, his divisiveness, and his blatant disregard for truth were exposed for all to see. But Clinton, through her grace, her intelligence, and her unwavering commitment to the American people, proved that we have a choice. We have the power to decide what kind of future we want. A future built on unity, progress, and respect for every individual. Not one driven by fear, hatred, or division. This moment wasn't just a debate, it was a turning point. A reminder that when we stand together, when we fight for what's right, we can overcome the darkness that threatens to divide us. But this fight doesn't end with the debate. It doesn't end with the election. This is just the beginning. If you believe in standing up for truth, for integrity, and for a brighter future, now is the time to act. Share this video. Help spread the message of hope and unity that Clinton has inspired in us all. Subscribe for more, and be part of this movement. A movement that fights for a future where justice, dignity, and equality are not just ideals but realities. Together, we can make sure that America's future is one that reflects the best of us. One where honesty, integrity, and compassion are our guiding lights. Stand with us. Stand for a future built on truth, respect, and justice. Don't just watch the change. Be the change. Subscribe now.